係點啊？哦，你想即係要問我俾你第一個嚇。仲未講完。如果你能夠鬥快撳嘅話，咁你會第一個啦。好啊，各位同事，而家我哋咧係夠鐘又夠。
Members, it's time, so I will call the meeting to order. The duration of the meeting will be 2 hours and 30 minutes. I remind members that if you have any direct or indirect pecuniary interest on the items discussed today, please disclose the nature of such interest per Rule 83A of the Rules of Procedure. I will call your attention to the requirements on voting in case of direct pecuniary interest under Rule 84. We will first deal with item FCR 2017 to 1841, and no member requested a separate voting before we proceed to the next item.
會喺2017年11月1號會議上所提。
And this invites members to approve an item made at the PWSC on the lift and pedestrian walkway system between Taiwan Hao Road and Tong Tsui Street in Kwai, Chung, and this would be upgraded to Category A as an estimated cost of $249.4 million. I'm an independent director of the Bank of East Asia. I now put this item to the vote. Those in favor, please raise your hands. Those against, please raise your hands. The majority of the members present are in favor. The item is passed. Next, FCR 2017 to 1842. This invites members to approve the recommendation made on the 4th of July at the PWSC on the upgrading of part of 763CL entitled Integrated Basement for West Kowloon Cultural District, third stage of construction works to Category A at an estimated cost of $3.1784 billion in money of the day prices, and the retention of the remainder of 763CL in Category B. The Public Works Subcommittee has scrutinized this recommendation for 5 hours and 22 minutes. The government prepared 2 papers, and again, I declare that I'm a director of the Bank of East Asia, and with us we have Ms. Feng, Mr. Chan Pan. I wanted to talk about the project at Tong Tsui Street, but it was passed swiftly already. For the integrated basement for West Kowloon Cultural District, I hope that it can be passed swiftly as well. Apparently, the opposition wanted to make a good example to so that they would not appear to be filibustering. I hope they can continue so that all the funding suggestions or proposals can be passed within reasonable time frames. Dr. K.K. Kwok, 5 minutes. This is one of the most expensive basements in Hong Kong history at $3.5 billion. Chairman, and when the West Kowloon Cultural District was announced, and apparently it was the only funding application, but as of now, this is no longer the case. A lot of infrastructure works, for example, for the walkway or the this super or mega basement, and the West Cultural District Authority is the sole manager of the cultural district. the math is very difficult. Last time the government refused to provide formula, but in terms of land value, it might amount to $100 billion, including the hotel and office building, etc. Now, we are asking for another $3.178 billion for the third phase of the integrated basement. The government is being unscrupulous. They are using taxpayers' monies to sum these projects, while they continue to say that they do not have enough money. They are going back on their words. But we hope to recover some funds by land sale or granting of land, but the site has been given to the WKCDA. And it is notorious. You might still remember the Palace Museum. And an agreement was signed secretly with the mainland, and the site became a palace museum. They were just betting on the public's money. If the government has any integrity, the initial funding of $20 billion should include everything. No one was told at Leshko that the funds would not be enough, and they would come back for more. So such acts were unscrupulous, and such financial arrangements are hardly acceptable to me because the public will suffer. So for this mega basement, if the biggest beneficiary is not WKCDA but Hong Kong people, if they are able to share the fruits or benefits, these are investments on public money, and the public should stand to benefit. Why isn't the WKCDA responsible so that they would not become a paradise of sort? And now retired civil servants have joined and receiving very high salaries. Permanent Secretary, in July 2013, on the Joint Subcommittee to monitor the implementation of the West Kowloon Cultural District, the government announced our plans to solely finance the project, and we came back subsequently to Leshko for funding. And in 2008, in the 21.6 billion application, the government did not foresee the need for such payment, and the WKCDA commissioned forces for the design work, and after that came the decision to build a basement. Mr. A. Chan, for both the Pedestrian camp and ourselves, we thought that the previous item would be voted on separately, and Ms. Elsmack and others would like to ask questions. Sometimes this is not just about filibustering. If the public officers are here, we can ask questions for a whole hour, but nonetheless, it was passed for the WKCDA project. For this replacement page, in the third paragraph, it says, since the government could not secure the funding in 2016 to 17 at the Finance Committee, so updated information must be given on the works timeline and project. As for the one of the two main contracts, tendering was needed, and in 2017 the tendering price was lower than expected. The latest estimate has gone down by 12.6%, which was about $460 million. I would like the government to explain what is happening. We are always accused of standing in the way, and the congestion of the agenda would lead to lots of jobs or public money, but this is not necessarily the case for this example. And the tendering prices actually came down with after the delay. Mrs. Fong, while applying for electrical funding, we are conducting tendering, but we do not award the tender to that bidder. The lowest bid we received were lower than the original bid. So we now only apply for $3.178 billion more. And the construction costs for foundations over the past year dropped slightly, and with a half-year delay. The cost of other items increased. That's why we presented scenario A and B. Scenario A refers to increase in prices, and for B, there was a decrease. So the overall drop was about $500 million, or 12.6%. This depends on developments of the construction sector. It doesn't mean that by granting it to the WKCDA, the prices would go down. This is not the correct view. Chairman, I'm not saying that it would be inevitable budget overruns for this reason. The tendering prices went down by more than 10%, which is substantial. The consultancy fees have increased, and the internal management costs of the WKCDA went up by $2.4 million. Doesn't mean they can make more in management fees. This is something that must be explained. And those were money of the day prices. When we first came for the application, the prices were the September 2016 level. But now the prices are based on September 2017. As for the upward adjustments, I'd like the CDD to take this question. Thank you very much. Mrs. Fong was correct. In the past, we used September 2016 prices, and they have been updated to September 2017 prices. And we had to reflect the rise in salaries, and they were reflected. So how much was the salary rise? You can see how much Hong Kong people have enjoyed in terms of pay rise over the past year. It was about 3 to 4%. Thank you. So was the pay rise linked to inflation? These are management fees, right? I stress that the management costs payable to WKCDA on at cost basis. The estimate is 3 to 4%, but the actual expense will depend on the actual spending. We would often make price adjustments based on money of the day prices. Next, Mr. Leung Yichong. Chairman, I wanted to ask about the Taiwo Hao Road project as well, but nonetheless, it has been passed, so I can no longer ask questions. I think this project is rather peculiar. The overall costs went down by 12.6%, which is substantial. There is a time gap between the estimation and the actual implementation, and you also talked about pay rises. I hope you can explain more. For salaries, they would inevitably go up even if they fail to meet inflation. But why is there such a wide gap? Why is the drop as much as 12.6%? I think even a difference of 3 to 4% is big, but 12 to 6% is really substantial. %12.6% doesn't reflect the adjustment across the board. For the basement structure at Zone 3B and the relevant works, the original estimate is 1.76 billion, and now it's 1.63 billion, and that led to a overall drop of 12.6%. The 12.6% doesn't reflect salaries. Why was there such a wide discrepancy in the in your estimate?
Now, materials prices have fallen so much. Now, we look at the other projects, you see that the costs increase due to material and wages increase. So it wasn't a decrease in those cases, and now it's 12.6%. Now, we were talking about wage increases, and we supplemented that there was a major contract where the bid came in, and that was the price they offered. And they took into account many conditions, market conditions, scale of the project, and also they took into account their own bidding strategy. And it depends on whether they are experienced, and so they have a better grasp of the risk assessment. And it also depends their own internal resources. Maybe they had more manpower and machinery on hand at the time they submitted the bid, so they had the room to adjust downward. So there might be a crisis. The price may be too low, and in the end they may not be able to complete the project. Now, if the difference is so large, maybe they won't be able to cope. Thank you. Now, it's about in the range of 10%. Now, when we assess the bids, we look at their previous track record and experience and performance. So we have the confidence that this bid is reasonable. We are very concerned that they have to pay for the material price, and in the end, wages may cause a problem. The wages may be a way to exploit the workers and the subcontractors, and the subcontractors may disappear. So we don't want these things to appear. How to ensure that doesn't happen? You look at the experience, but that is not foolproof. Any preventive measures? Now, we have paid much attention to these risks. Now, we look at the historical records, etc. When events like this happen, what do? You have to adopt preventive measures. Mr. Leung, what preventive measures do you want them to implement? A bond. The director or someone, WKCDA, can tell us about the arrangements. Mr. Prescott?
In fact, all of our contracts, we do require bond from the main contractor. It's a standard practice, in fact, in all of our major contracts. The purpose is exactly as you say. It's to protect ourselves, but it's also to ensure the completion of the job and there are penalties if there are any defaults on those. So there are protections built into our tendering to ensure that both ourselves as well as the contractor are protected. I think it's also worth saying that our experience over the last 5 contracts that we've done, including one basement contract, is that the basement is actually fairly straightforward. The complexity tends to be more in the superstructure work. As you would see, if you come to the site on the, I think it's the 21st of this month, you'll have a chance to see for yourself exactly what happens on site. We'd be happy to show you around. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
好，劉國勳議員5分鐘。
多謝主席。其實我都係想問，即係我見
Now, Kwai, 5 minutes. Now, in the document, it was 3.6 billion. Now it's 3.1 billion. Now it's good. Now the government gets blamed when the price goes up, and now it gets blamed when it's cheaper. Now we think it's good. Maybe there were some tendering bids recently when the lowest bid won, and we hear that very often they were able to claim from the government. So maybe in the end it would still come in at $3.6 billion or maybe even higher. Would there be a maximum price or maximum amount which can be claimed? Now, I know that there are a lot of items which have to be completed with regard to the basement. Now, can you tell us about all of them so we know how much it will cost in total? I will say something first, and then I will ask Ms. Pang and Mr. Pascal to supplement. Now, for the basements 3A and 3B, with this funding, we can complete 3A and 3B. Now, as for 2A, 2C, and 2D, that is the express rail link down below the express rail link. We expect that next year we can get back this piece of land, and in early this year, we already were doing a consultant report. We expect that by early 2019, we have the prices for 2A, 2C, 2D, and we can come back and tell you what's the expected price. So please allow us the time to complete this consultant report, so we will come back and inform you in due course. We thank the member for his question. The member was saying, would it be that we have a sum of money so that the contractor will claim compensation? Now, every claim must be properly backed by a reason. Now, our engineering colleagues will examine closely the basis for the claim. We won't just pay them just because we have the money. Actually, I want to say I support the scheme. The scheme has been in operation, so we need to work on the basement 2A, 2B, 2C. That's to be done in 2019. Now, in the future, there will be a enhanced financial arrangement. Now, the government land might be turned over to West Kowloon. So would that impact the works later, the Permanent Secretary? Now, the consultant report, now under the enhanced financial arrangement, 2A, 2B, 2C, those hotels and the offices, how they are located and the design, because we need to take that into account when we work out the figures for the basement. Now, we need to look at the distribution of the GFA under the enhanced financial arrangement and the outlay or layout of the basement. So, Now we think we should launch these works as soon as possible, even though it's cheaper by 12%, yet the later you embark on them, the more the prices go up. So let's get this done quickly. Let's get the basement done quickly. So I support the scheme. Mr. Charles Moore? I remember many years ago, I was on the consultation committee of the West Kowloon. At the time, we were still engaging in public engagement exercise. We waited for a long time for the WKCD. They weren't talking about the express rail link then. And now the ERL is almost completed. And many facilities that we looked forward to then, we are still waiting for now. And basically, we were all in support of the basement. We want to place the roads underground so as to leave more greenery above ground for the public. Now on financing, now in the end the government had to pay for things, and the Permanent Secretary said that it's been decided. Now the Permanent Secretary said that you have to know what's the superstructure before you can find out how to design what's underneath. Now some facilities, for instance, the hotels and offices, residential developments. Now, can you tell us, have they been delayed? And what is the current situation about the tendering and so on? Because we need to know what's going to be built above, how tall, how heavy, before you can design what's below. Secretary? Now we are moving ahead on all fronts. Now, but 2A, 2B, and 2C, now they are in the middle of West Kowloon due to the construction of the express rail link, so we couldn't plan for them. And this year we are doing the planning for 2A and 2B and 2C and the design of what's going to be above it. And because there was no pavement, so Tsui Center, the West Kowloon Park, and the Palace Museum, which is to be built, those are not constrained by the basement. Those are progressing. They are not above the basement. That's right. Tsui Center is to be completed in 2018, end of 2018 or early 2019. And the hotels and the offices, are they related to the basement area? Now we are coming for funding for the area where there will be the Tsui Center and the Artist Square. There will be no hotels, but there will be some offices, mainly for the use by West Kowloon development itself. I see on some plans that there are hotels, offices, and residential developments, and then below those there will be the road. So will you have to coordinate what is going to be built above before you know how much will be spent on the basement according to the consultant? Now on 3A we don't have to be too concerned about hotels, about the offices, but that's not for the other part. Mr. Prescott?
Perhaps I can clarify. The bid we're after here for 3B, the section is called Artist Square. It comprises the Lyric Theatre Complex, 2 office buildings, and 1 mixed-use building that we're still deciding. But the basic superstructure design is very simple. and all the foundations are already in. That's decided. What the Permanent Secretary is talking about is the work that we're now looking at for the 2A, 2B, 2C basement area. That is more complex because the design, for example, the music centre, the Great Theatre, musical theatre, the medium-sized theatre, those are not yet designed to the state where we can finalise them. That's what we're doing now. As far as the hotel offices or residential in that area, we can also do what we've done already in 3B, which is look at a prescriptive design which will not preclude the final implementation. So all of that is underway, and as the Permanent Secretary says, we'll bring that back in 2019 for members.
好啊，盧偉國議員5分鐘。
多謝主席。
Mr. Loy Kwai, 5 minutes. I'm a member of the West Kowloon Cultural District Authority, but the work is pro bono in its nature. I'm not paid, so there's no pecuniary interest. I speak in support of this project, and for members of the engineering trade, some might doubt the high cost of an integrated basement, but as Mr. Charles Mok said, in the overall planning of West Kowloon Cultural District, there was a lot of participation, and there were also discussions at expert panels. I was involved in many of those discussions, and the consensus was to use the ground space of such a valuable site and transform it into a recreational and cultural center. And we hope that the ground level is pedestrian friendly. So the basement is very different from what we imagined in mind. All the transport arrangements of WKCD is located at the basement, so it's very complicated and challenging indeed. As explained in the paper, you can look at the there is an underground road of 230 meters, as well as about 380 meters of long drainage box culvert, and that is why it's more expensive than the ordinary basement. But in order to forge community consensus, and this is indeed the this would facilitate optimum use of the land. So regardless of the construction difficulties, we would try to overcome them. And with the scale of the project and the complexity, the cost is substantial. I won't raise any more questions because I think the key is for the works to begin as soon as possible. As Mr. Charles Mok said, there was wide participation in the public engagement, but the construction period is rather long. But I trust that the public and ourselves are still passionate about WKCD, and hopefully it can be realized soon. Mr. Christopher Chung. Thank you. The integrated basement of WKCD is a giant project, and it must be conducted in phases, and the amount of fund intended is $3.178 billion, which is for Zone 3 only. So for the remaining works, how many more phases are required, and when can they be completed? What is the expected total construction costs? For many public works projects, there were substantial budget overruns. So does the government have any measures in place to make sure that the WKCD project would be completed on time and on budget? Permanent Secretary, this is the second time we come for funding of the integrated basement. Last time we came for about 2.7 billion, and this time 3.178 billion. And we are still conducting a consultancy study, and we can only report to members on the total figure by early next year. And both batches of funding amount to about $60 billion for zones 2A to C. We cannot say at this point how much we need, so hopefully next time we will come up with an aggregate sum, but this would depend on the result of the consultancy study. Any follow-up questions? The integrated basement would cost substantially, but with the drainage, box culvert, and essential structures, they would be handed over to WKCDA and developers. These would bring substantial profit. And can we recover the construction costs of the basement in the future? Should there be any profits? For residential, commercial, and hotel facilities, the WKCDA would hold the rights, and the WKCDA is not allowed to sell those rights. A build, operate, transfer approach might be adopted, and it would be returned to the WKCDA. The government will continue to pay the cost of the site. And under BOT, the developer must pay an amount to WKCDA, and after the BOT, the WKCDA will split the revenue with the government. Ms. Claudia Mo. Hong Kong people would be sad to see another project with a budget overrun. So the overall savings is only about $400 million, and the government said they are confident that Zone 3 would carry a reasonable cost. Can you promise that for this project you would not come back for more funds and there would not be a budget overrun? And if you have a surplus, for instance, if you do not need as much as $3.178 million, let's say if you only require $3 billion, would the unused portion be returned to the Treasury? We conducted tendering to determine the tender prices, and with approval at the FC today, we can grant the tender immediately, and the price paid would be according to the tender. So for costs incurred, they would not be payable if they have not actually been incurred. So the CDB would grant the funds to its contractors. So I take this as a promise. Why are you asking the WKCDA to be fully in charge? The WKCDA is a government project, and in the WKCDA, well, you have to pay the staff. You talked about profit sharing in the future, but what about the people working inside? They are from another hierarchy. You said the rights of the cultural facilities on top of the basement would go to the WKCDA, which is understandable because it's part and parcel of the entire development. But as for the rights of residential developments, they are also within the ambit of WKCDA, and they will share the benefits or profits with the government in the future. The WKCDA is not very transparent. You are appointing your own people. Well, at least that's the general impression. Why are you allowing the WKCDA to have the full management rights or operation rights? We explained to the joint subcommittee on why there is such enhanced financial arrangement, and by February, we would come back to the joint subcommittee to further explain the enhanced financial arrangement and the latest arrangements by the WKCDA. The site will be given to them because at the time we applied for $21.6 billion from LegCo for all the WKCD facilities, but with the long planning process, in 2009 to 13, we did 3 stages of public engagement, and by 2013, we finally passed the plan. And in the process, over the past 10 years, construction prices or construction costs have risen, and the WKCD is not as profitable as expected. So in terms of the long-term facilities and future operation, there's a major shortage of resources. So the Executive and Council allow the WKCD to make decisions, and hopefully we can secure the funds for them to become self-financing in the long run, and they can build facilities in the third zone, including the Lyric Center, etc. Chairman, I asked a very specific question, and she said everything from zero. Of course, we knew that the previous fund was $21.6 billion. We know that it cannot be that cheap. You talked about BOT, which is the build, operate, and transfer model. And what is the period of time? It was, well, Dr. Priscilla Leung, 5 minutes. Chairman, first of all, declaration. I own a property nearby in the vicinity of WKCD. And we have been hoping for the implementation of WKCDA, and I'm sure a lot of residents at West Kowloon want such facilities to be completed as soon as possible. And I hope that the basement can be completed on time. I hope you would succeed with this integrated basement. You know, Hong Kong lacks land. We always talk about underground developments, and you have done a great job. And that's that we have to talk about our concerns and pains. And the XLL is also being built, and there are issues with noise, hygiene, etc., or even traffic, especially for drivers. And one cause for concern for the WKCD is that the management is like a pilot of the Bermuda, and well, I hope that Mr. Pescott can carry out the management properly. But every time there's a change in the management, it is a cause for concern for me. You talked about BOT. I'm also a district councillor in West Kowloon. For the Kowloon City District Council, well, we described the cruise terminal BOT as a failure. So whenever I hear BOT, I'm very concerned. I think you must embrace transparency, and you must tell us how you determine the details. And you are unable to implement changes. The replacement of the management at WKCDA is certainly cause for concern. While I support this item, my colleague talked about the cultural facility, the pedestrian-friendly facilities, etc. We are very supportive, and we see that you have listened and you are doing something, and this is very positive.
Now, you said that after it's self-financing, then you can put the cultural facilities into operation. Now, if they don't come out well in self-financing, will those still be implemented? Now, we hope these can be these projects can go ahead quickly so that we are reassured after the transport arrangements and the basement are completed, then everything will go smoothly. Ms. Prescott?
In fact, that is exactly what we're trying to do. Our sole objective now is to say, look, we have consulted extensively. We will continue to consult, as we've done recently with the Hong Kong Palace Museum, but let's get on and deliver this project. The approval today will allow us to take a major step forward. It will allow us to complete 4 of the major buildings in that area. And I think it is important that our management is as transparent as possible. For that reason, for example, as we develop the development plans for the 2A, 2B, 2C basement, we will be consulting the public on that, probably early next year, to be as transparent as possible. As for the general situation, I can say that over the last 3 years that I've been involved with this project, we've enhanced our management quite substantially. We have brought in a number of specialists to help us to deal with the particular areas that we're dealing with, both on the performing arts side, on the museum side, and of course most importantly on the construction side. And I can assure members we'll continue to do that.
Okay.
OK，好，下一位譚文豪議員。
Next, Tam Ho. Mr. Tam Ho. Now, after this funding bid, what will happen to your management? Will you be able to ensure sound finances of the contractors? Not the finances at the time they submitted the bid, but after they win the bid, when they work on the project, will you monitor their finances to ensure that they have healthy finance to complete the project? Mr. Prescott?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, indeed. This is, in fact, one of the most important aspects of the contract management that we have. We have a system of independent contract management. They are responsible to us to ensure that on a weekly and monthly basis, all of the funding requests are submitted, they're checked, they're verified before they're passed on. So that is an ongoing process and is something that we actually consider to be functionally central to the way we manage these contracts. And I can assure members we will continue to do that going forward.
主席，咁喺過往
Now, in the past, the West Kowloon Works, did any contractor come into financial problem? Were there such cases up to now? Mr. Prescott? Or is it the administration? Mr. Prescott?
As far as the contractors that we're having on site at the moment, they are all the original contractors. They're all continuing to work. We do work with the contractors on a regular basis. That we have a dialogue with them to make sure that they have the resources to allow them to pay their subcontractors, pay their staff, and what have you. it's a difficult one to answer in the sense that all I can talk about is in respect of the work that they do for us, and I can assure you that that work is continuing at a pace. And as I said before, if members would like to see for themselves, you're very welcome to come down to the visit we're organising later this month.
Okay, so in this case, I can confirm that main contractor or subcontractor are actually in a healthy state in terms of financially, and all the workers being paid as accordingly.
I can certainly confirm that as far as our checking is concerned, all the workers are being paid on time. I can also confirm that as far as our checking is concerned, the contractors that are working on our site currently have the resources to continue their work. But as I say, I'm not giving any guarantees on other sites outside our site.
Yeah, but at least, I mean, like that has been confirmed that until today, this time, I mean, like all the contractor, it's actually in a healthy state. I mean, that is the main thing that I want to ensure. And I would like to see that to be continued if this funding has been approved. I hope the government will continue to monitor all the subcontractor and the main contractor, because the important part is we need to ensure all our workers are actually being paid, you know, as scheduled. That's a major thing. I mean, like they have families too.
Of course.
Thank you.
And I fully support that, and I can assure you that that is always our objective, to make sure that both the contractors, the subcontractors, which are equally important, and their staff are paid on time.
Okay, thank you.
黃碧雲議員。
主席，我
Ms. Helena Wong, I also declare that I live next to West Kowloon Cultural District area. Now the neighborhood residents all wish the WKCD to be completed earlier. The XRL took some West Kowloon sites and not yet returned. It's a bit late. But I understand that one has to go ahead with the basement. Construction is going on. They can't stop the works. But the basement is very complex. You have to build roads, etc. And unless you complete the basement, you can't build above. So we are forced to support you. But there are some problems which need to be clarified to ensure that we can rest our minds at ease. Last time when we voted, the Democratic Party abstained. Now, the building, the operation and transfer for the West Kowloon Works, now this covers at least 25 years, right? Maybe as even as 30 years. Now, during such a long period, how long is the construction period? And then comes the development of the superstructure. Is it to be developed in phases, or is it that once the foundations are completed, the construction will go ahead quickly? How long will be the construction period? And after construction is completed, concerning the operation, the group that wins the bid, maybe they operate it very badly, touch wood, like the cruise terminal. Will there be an interim assessment or assessment in phases? Now, if they perform poorly, they are not really enthusiastic or proactive in the operation of the hotels, etc. Can we terminate the arrangement? Can we apply some sanctions to ensure that they do well? A second question. Now, earlier some members asked, in that 25 years, the development of the properties there, now the land value was very high, and then they built some properties. Now how much will be the profit? Now, does the government have a share? How much a share will go to the WKCDA to support the operation and the remainder of the developments? This is not clear. Is it that we wait till after 25 years, after BOT has been completed, that the sums are all settled, will some of the profits go back to WKCDA? Can WKCDA spend it all? And if not, how much will come back to the government? Now, it's quite complex, the enhanced financial arrangement. We hope that by next February, the West Kowloon Monitoring Committee we will be able to explain. Now, under that enhanced financial arrangement, now the BOT is a bit different from the cruise terminal. For the cruise terminal, they couldn't do BOT because the market was not interested. The government put up the funding, and then a contractor built, and then operation by another group. So in BOT, the contractor has to get its own funding, not only commercial facilities, but also retail and catering facilities have to be built by the bidder. And how will you offer the incentive for the developer to invest? So you have to let them share in the revenue for West Kowloon in the future. Now, after the BOT is completed, after West Kowloon property rights are returned to the government, then it's time for them to share the revenue. So the government will collect funds twice. First, when they submit the bids, they have to pay a sum to the government, and then after the project is completed, the West Kowloon district has to share with the government, when the government will get back some of the money. Mr. Tsui, sorry for my hoarse voice. Now, first question. Now, paragraph 19 of the document, it mentions a $21.76 million of recurrent expense. Now, who will pay for that? Will it be the West Kowloon CDA, or will it be the government? And also to follow up on a question by Mr. Chen Chi-chun. Now the sum is lower by $400 million. The Permanent Secretary said it's mainly item B, the structure, basement structure, etc., less by over $100 million. Now, we are not just happy because it's cheaper. If the difference is too large, then we are suspicious of the ability for the government's ability in making assessments. So on item E, now the protection to the now actually it's about half of the projection. Now I like the why is it that for item D the estimate is more than 50%? Now on the $21.6 million, now that is actually recurrent expense to be borne by the government. The reason is that there is an underground road in the basement, 230 meters long. The government has to manage that and to be responsible for maintenance. So there will be costs like electricity charges, lighting, ventilation, etc. These will be paid for by the government. This is public infrastructure. So $21.6 million per year. Now, on the second part of the question, Ms. Pang, now earlier we explained sometimes the bidder will not just take into account market conditions and their own bidding strategy, their profit margin, required, they may shrink that in order to get to win the bid. And at the time, within the organization, they may have ample machinery and manpower. At the time they submitted the bid, so they might lower their bid to win the contract. So this does happen in the market. Chairman, now so for item D, is it a separate tendering item? No, it's not an item by itself in tendering. There is a quotation, so that they are separate items. So for each item A, B, C, D, E, they state their profit margins. If they don't state the profit margins, then I think the numbers would be very fluid. They can just say this is not the actual amount needed.
不如具體啲問，即係 D 嗰度有冇
More specifically, for item D, is there further breakdown on why the amount has gone down by half? We have not opened the tendering process, so I cannot provide any breakdown at this point. Chairman, she said the tendering has not started, so how would you know the updated prices? Thank you very much. The tenders have not been granted, but we have looked at the prices of the tenders received. So those are sensitive data, so they would not be disclosed here. The bids are not granted, but you cannot say you do not know about the breakdown under item D. Perhaps I will wait for the second round. Next, Mr. Shukachan. Thank you. Like Mr. Lee Chu, my voice is coarse. Please bear with me for that. For the WKCD integrated basement, I think this is a torturing process. Sometimes we talk about budget overruns, and sometimes you tell us that you save $400 million. Of course, that would be welcomed, but there are a few concerns. Sometimes we see budget overruns and sometimes we have savings, so that led to questions about financial stability. And today we managed to save $400 million, and next time you might say that it was a mistake, so we do not want to go on such roller coaster. So many members ask whether these estimates are really accurate. And in terms of financial arrangements, as the Permanent Secretary said, this is a very complex project, and that it will be explained at the subcommittee later on. As with a lot of white elephant projects, we are the ones paying. And in terms of profit and expenditure, how can the or when would the profits be used to fill the gap or the deficit? And I have something to rant about. And there's a piece of news which is not really relevant to here. It is about CSSA payments for the elderly people have gone up by 1.7%, which is $50. And for fruit money, the payment rate went up by $20 per year. So for elderly CSSA payment, it will go up from $3,475 from $3,485, and the total increase budget is about $8.6 million for fruit money. there are about more than 240,000 recipients. The payment rate went up from $1,325 to $1,345. So you managed to save $400 million, but the government just offers a rise of 20 or 50,000 or $50 for the elderly people. Why is the government so pathetic towards elderly people? I know that the monies come from different budgets, and this is not in your ambit. But in terms of public finance, where are they getting their money? This is something I want to point out. And if possible, I hope the Mrs. Fong can address the first two questions. Thank you. And we would carry out estimates based on the best information available. Last time we came to the Finance Committee and we used September 2016 estimates, and we came up with about $3 billion. And we managed savings in the second round of tendering, and we reported it to LegCo as well. It doesn't mean that we can save money every single time. So the scenarios differ case to case. Mr. Ray Chan, 4 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. The Permanent Secretary and government want people to think that this is not about the budget overrun of WKCD. And in 2008, the WKCDA did not plan for an integrated basement. So in June 2013, the government announced they would bear the full capital cost for construction. So it was the funds were given to WKCDA. Will going forward, the funds will come from the government, and those are related to WKCD. And can you show us how much has been spent, or how much have you granted? And going forward, how many more do you expect? Of course, under the enhanced arrangement, you are self-financing, and we cannot say anything. And if you try to get more information, they will say it's confidential. I had such experience at the Joint Committee on West Kowloon, but that's another matter. For West Kowloon related matters, whether for works entrusted to the authority and the expected amount of money needed, can you share any information with us? So far, we sought a few funding, and in September 2015, we sought $2.9 billion for integrated basement and design. We are talking about $87 million for a total of $6 billion. We applied for the 1.3 for various public works, including drainage, roads, etc. And altogether, it amounts to an additional $7.3 billion. Together with the $21 billion approved in 2008, the total amount is $28.9 billion, including this application. How much more do you expect to need? In the joint subcommittee last time, we said that we will go to the PWSC for $190 million for various ancillary works. Of course, the 2A, B, and C basement, I cannot anticipate at this point. How many figures would it take? I think you can take a guess for yourself. For 3A and B, we need $6 billion. So for 2A, B, and C, the total area is bigger than the area for area 2 or zone 2. There's no way I can estimate the costs. We are concerned about the overrun. I have a more specific question. As I know, the ground floor of the integrated basement came from reclamation, so it should not be affected by soil conditions. So this project does not involve non-reclamation geotechnical issues, right? I'm not an engineer, but the most difficult part is to build something for the existing Airport Express tunnels and associated works. For the rest, I would delegate to Ms. Pang. Thank you very much. For Zone 3B, it is within our reclamation area. And for some works, they might involve deep soil, and there are certain risks. And for the sake of this funding exercise, we are not rather affected by strata of soil, and we have conducted boring as well. So the biggest challenge is with the protection works for the existing Airport Express tunnels. So hopefully we can manage these risks with the experience of Zone 3A. And hopefully we can do a better job in managing risks. Dr. Lena Wang, 4 minutes. The cost for the basement is also substantial. 3A and 3B takes more than $3 billion each, and together it comes to $6 billion. For 2A and 2B, they have yet sought funding, and the area is a total of 3A and 3B doubled. So I hope it wouldn't take $12 billion. 3B is rather complicated because it involves the Airport Express tunnels, etc. It's very complicated. I don't know the situation in 2A and 2B. Apparently, there's no railway passing through. Perhaps that's something you can do with the airport at the area. And we might be looking at a sum of $16 billion for public works, like drainage. They amount to $7 billion. And we came twice, one $800 million, one $400 million, for a total of $1.2 billion. And we will seek $190 million from the Public Works Subcommittee for a new tunnel. And we also have a footbridge connecting to the elements. When you talked about 2015, you sought $2.9 billion. So they were for the 3A basement, right? So 3A and 3B amounts to more than $6 billion, and another $1.3 billion for public facilities. Do they encompass or address the needs of the 2A and 2B basements?
IW，我哋成日講嗰種叫。
No, $1.3 billion is PIW. That is roads, drainage, and so on. Now, this is not part of West Kowloon facilities. $1.3 billion so far. Now, is there an upper limit for the basement? Now 2A, 2B, first quarter 2019, you would come back for funding again, you said. And how about the rest of the numbers? Now 2A, 2B, the design of the basement is still going on, so I can't supply the figure. Now, we are all concerned about how to share the cost. Now, the PS said that you said that that in respect of the winning bidder, there would be one sum, and you will request the developer to share. Now, how large a percentage of the development cost? Now, on how much the developer is willing to pay to the government or to West Kowloon Cultural District Authority, now that depends on the market. Now, that depends on what we want them to build, and that depends on how the market reacts. Some developers might give more to the government, some would pay less. So it depends on many of these factors before we decide who will be able to develop it. Now, if you want to reflect the land cost and the development cost of the basement, this won't be attractive if they have to share with the government and return the money to the government. Now, we want it to be attractive to the market, so by February next year, we hope to be able to provide some indications. Now, 3 members have already asked, so other members in the building, please come down. Choi Dick, 4 minutes. I follow up on the question last time. Now, for 2016 and 17, the money was not funded, so you wait for the bids to come back, and so you have firmer prices, and the firmer price is now lower. Now, if the 3.6 billion was granted in 2016-17 and the eventual successful bid, if it's over $3.6 billion, what will happen, and what if it's slower, Ms. Pang? Now, it depends on the difference. If it's higher, then we look at the given the contingency funds set aside, we may be able to cope. Now, if there's money left, they will go back to the Treasury. Now, the company that submits the bid, now it would have seen the budget for 2016 to 17. Now, they would submit their bids accordingly, right? Now, the figures to LegCo would be visible to everyone else, and at the same time, they would consider competition situation in the market, and they have their bidding strategy. Now, if the market is very busy, or if there are few bids, so these are market conditions, and those would be reflected in the bids, and they would see all open documents, for instance, the LegCo documents. I'd like to follow up. When they come to the Finance Committee for funding, so if the bids have come in, then it's clear, and if there are other public works when they come for funding, shouldn't you advance the time for tendering, so that when you come to the FC, the bids have already come in, then you wouldn't have these large differences. Now, for the more complex projects, we hope to have this synchronized arrangement, but for every bid, every tendering exercise, they have a 3-month validity period, but this time it's longer, 1 year, because we have to allow enough time to come to LegCo for funding. Early this year, we were already in the queue for funds, and we hope today we can get the funds. It's already half a year from the closing of the bid. By next year, the bids have been void, because now, if if once the the period for the bid is over, we have to come back to LegCo again. I hope the administration can supply the detailed breakdown for item D, the protection works for the AET. Now, Ms. Pang said the sensitivity, we don't want to disclose the figures right now, but when the bids have been approved, then we can offer the members the figures. So after the bid is awarded, can you give us the breakdown for those figures when there's no longer sensitive? Yes. So if we don't give you the funds today, then your tendering would expire. Now, there would still be 1 more year, but we don't want to be that close. If it's to be dragged out that long, I wouldn't be very happy as chairman. Claudia Mo, you don't have to be so concerned, chairman. Why do you have to claim such emotion? Now, the West Kowloon Cultural District is a public resource, and the present approach is that you have a tender exercise, and some contractors submit their bids. Whoever wins the bid, it would be on BOT basis, build, operate, and transfer. There should be a term of 20 or 25 years, right? Is it that what you are allowing for? Now, in January this year, we came to LegCo and explained. Now, if the BOT period is too short, it won't be attractive to the market. We are talking about a 30-year operation period. 30. Now, well, you said a 30-year operation period. You just have to tell me it's 30. Now, during those 30 years, there would be some sharing arrangement with WKCDA, and when it's at the end of it, the WKCDA will share with the government. That's my understanding. But Hong Kong people feel that is my resource, but you make all the decisions. And when you share at the end of it, you call it an arrangement, a financial arrangement, and it has to be enhanced financial arrangement. When you want to get the money, you come to LegCo. My understanding is that there is an entrustment agreement with WKCDA. That agreement the contents can be disclosed, right? Now, after PWSC, we gave to LegCo the contents of the arrangement. Now, how the government can monitor WKCDA, under what conditions can WCDA increase its charges. No, I'm talking about the agreement itself, not the introduction to the agreement. Now, maybe I missed it. Did you give the whole agreement to LegCo, or is it you just gave us a briefing document? It's same for Express Rail Link. There was no agreement itself. The government just offered introductory document. Same for the East River Water. Ms. Pang? We thank Ms. Mo for her question. Now, there was a LegCo document, the monitoring subcommittee, in the follow-up matters, we submitted an attachment. Most of the terms of the agreement on how to monitor WKCDA, etc., those were included in that attachment or enclosure. Now, you're referring to a document at the end of 2015, but that's not the agreement itself. Chen Chi-chun, 3 minutes. Now, on price adjustment reserve fund, there was a reduction of $200 million. It's 31%. Now, apart from the bid price being lower, the cost adjustment is also less than expected. Now, the mechanism now the reserve fund fell. Now, in June 2017, the is 0.6737, and the latest figure is 0.06. Now, why is it that the cost adjustment factor has decreased, and what are the factors for decrease in the next few years? Ms. Pang? Now, when we assess this factor, we adopted all along the latest cost adjustment factor, and these factors were supplied by the government economic advisor. It's based on a number of economic trends, which all along has been the basis of the factor. Now, when we consider the matter, we take into account the labor market conditions, construction wages and materials costs, and the global economic factors. So the government economic advisor, the government economist supplies us with these considerations. So is there a downward trend in these parameters? Now, actually every year there is a factor. Now, in the document, there's a cash flow table. Now, every year we have that's in paragraph 17 of the document. Dr. Fernando Chung, I'm really worried that we are investing tens of $billions, and it would be a playground for the rich. Now, it's said to be a cultural district, but the Kowloon Station, Austin Station, there were luxury residences on top, and the prices are now sky high, and this is their back garden, their playground. Now, Now, almost 1/3 of the area is for hotels, offices, and residential developments. Now, just looking at the color of it, of the plan. Now, of course, society needs to develop. Now, I'm not saying it's always wrong to have these back gardens for the rich. Mr. Shiu Ka-chun just now mentioned how harsh we are to the poor. Now, for the rich, well, we should end up with a cost of $40 billion, maybe $100 billion. And they come to us for money in tranches. So it's difficult to get an idea of the total. When we vet such large sums of funds being requested, we don't know how to act. Now, this is about art. This is to be a iconic area. Maybe it's no bad thing. Now, looking at the financial arrangement, at first we'll offer them the retail catering for them to operate, and now residential development, hotels, offices, they all go to them.
And all the infrastructure is built on public money, and the WKCDA was established with appointments from the government, and money was given to them to do their business. So they are both seeking business and developing art and culture at the same time. We granted funds to the WKCDA who would build the infrastructure, but at the end of the day, would such infrastructure or facilities really benefit the people? Can our grassroots enjoy these facilities? There are a lot of upscale facilities like hotels. I have great concerns whenever I see such projects. I think we are being too generous to these backyards for rich people, but for residential care homes for the disabled and elderly, hospitals, etc., it's apparently it's very difficult to do. We have no money and we have no land. Since they have the full development rights, I don't know how much those residential properties will demand when they are completed. I think the distribution of public resources is out of control. It's uneven. I do not trust this system, and I do not trust the WKCDA. I'm afraid that the entire project would become purely commercial, and it will become a playground for rich people. So I do not support the funding. I don't need a response. These are just my thoughts. Ms. Andrew Wong, 5 minutes. Thank you. My voice is also coarse. I think that is the case for many pro-democracy members. In terms of economic contribution, the WKCD created 2,200 construction-related jobs. And I'll be brief. They talked about art and culture, tourism, and the relevant jobs. And there will be jobs for young people as well. And it says in the operation phase, there will be 20,000 new jobs, and the annual contribution to our GDP would be $5.6 billion. In the enclosure, if the per foot price is $14,000 to $18,000, the overall revenue. The overall revenue would only be $6.6 billion. So how can they? How does that translate to $5.6 billion of economic contribution? Permanent Secretary, are you referring to the 2008 paper? At that time, the WKCDA commissioned a financial consultant to come up with the estimates. When all facilities are completed, together with retail and dining facilities, there would be fixed revenue. And that was on the assumption that facilities are completed within a short period of time. But after 2008, many of the assumptions no longer stood. For instance, some facilities could not be completed within a short time. A rather long time was spent on public consultation and construction. So come February, we will have an update on the latest financial position and the shortfall in terms of cash flow, etc. We will report to members. The figures are not promising, and we still allow them to come back, and then they will come back in February to persuade us that this is feasible. I'm not sure if she would like to respond. If the revenue is uncertain, would you still pursue it? We will implement the enhanced financial arrangements under the BOT mode. Developers or partners must provide operational expenditure to WKCDA through office rent, retail and catering revenue, etc. You talked about changes in different factors. We don't have the latest estimates under the enhanced approach. So you are here at the Finance Committee. Your job is to convince them, so we've heard you. In 2015, the former legislator, Ms. Albert Chan, talked about the entrustment fee of the WKCDA. The government paid WKCDA that is the management fee, and the cap was $12 million. And the fee, the cost was $62.7 or $62.7 million in MOD prices. The entrustment fee for each project is different depending on the scale, amount of manpower. The original fee was $12 million. That was another project from 2015. Why was there such a sharp jump? In July 2012, we did not use the existing approach. The current approach is at cost, and we would need about $62 million. At the time, the WKCDA paid a lot of the money, and they were not paid back by the government. But to be fair, we would allocate a more reasonable amount. But the actual amount of money we pay them would depend on the number of workers, number of hours, etc. I'm happy with the second point, but not the first. Mr. Holden Chow. Thank you. The integrated basement is to be upgraded to Category A. The paper mentioned a footbridge linking the Artist Square Bridge. It remains in Category B. And in paragraph 22, you said, I remember that in a panel meeting, we said that the footbridge was rather expensive, and some members asked asked why the government had to bear the full cost of the footbridge if it's connected to a shopping mall, and private companies might stand to benefit. Can they shoulder part of the cost? I remember we had a conversation on this. According to the paper, apparently your funding application does not include the footbridge. It has been excluded. How would you deal with the remaining section of the footbridge? How would you deal with the funding, and what is your plan? Thank you. Permanent Secretary, thank you very much. This footbridge connects Elements and the Artist Square Bridge, and it is about 80 meters long. At panel meetings, members did not agree with the original design. They hope that the WKCDA would talk to the government to come up with other designs, and we are conducting such work. And hopefully by early next year, we can come back to the joint subcommittee to explain the latest design and costs. So this is not part of the funding application. The funding application has been suspended. I just have something to add. And since it's connected to a shopping mall, since the mall also benefits, should they shoulder part of the cost? So that was what I said last time at a panel meeting, and I'm saying it again. So hopefully the government can take this on board. We have addressed this question already because according to the land lease, they are not required to build this footbridge, so it's rather voluntary in nature. The footbridge is being funded by public money. Mr. Michael Tian, thank you. Years ago, I studied MBA, and I never thought about entering politics, but I now find it useful. I am more and more alert to public expenditure. For the Shatin Central link, the budget overrun is $16.5 billion, and the Hong Kong Zhuhai Macau bridge, it might well be even more. I now finally see some light at the end of the tunnel. Because for the other projects, the funding comes first, then the tendering. So by the time the tendering is conducted, the market has changed. Everyone is employed, so the tendering prices also go up. This time, it's a bit different. They conduct the tendering, and they even awarded the tender before seeking the funding. So we might be able to save time with this approach. So my question is, how much time have we actually saved? Thank you very much. Such approach is not without risks. I just want to know how much time we managed to save. Your approach is to conduct the tendering first. Compared with the past approach, how much time have you saved? Can the project manager share their insights with us? In the past, we required 4 months for the procedure, so in theory, we can say 4 months. But since there was a delay in the funding, this advantage was lost. But barring any delay, there would be an advantage, right? So compared with the traditional approach of tender and fund, you can save some time, right? So in this case, it's 4 months. Since you have awarded the tender, the estimate of 3.17 billion should be very accurate. Yes, it's very accurate, but we still need to maintain some contingencies. So this is like the way we impose we demand a cap or upper limit from the MTR Corporation. I have a question for the Permanent Secretary of the Treasury. Why do we still have so many projects in Hong Kong with which adopts tender and fund rather than the other way around? Ms. Lau. Thank you very much. As you know, for public infrastructure works, the cost and period of time needed would be different. We would do our best in terms of the scale and difficulty in the projects. We would do our best to come up with estimates. In the past, we would conduct tendering only after securing the funds. You are just repeating what I said. With such a good method, why don't we dispose with our old approach? Can we embrace this approach in the future? That is to tender first before securing funds. Generally speaking, we would conduct both simultaneously. If we conduct tendering first before securing funds, it means that we would have to wait a relatively long period before the tenders can be granted, because we have to go through certain procedures to secure funds, and sometimes it's long, sometimes shorter. So for the contractors, they would factor in such uncertainty in their quotations, and this might eventually affect our tendering prices. This time, you said you can save up to 4 months, and you would not lose in any case. Chairman, our hands were actually forced. In our original plan, this item should have been tabled in the Finance Committee in the previous year, but at the time, the progress of the Finance Committee meant that we are seeing what is happening today. I think there are indeed benefits. The government should think about it. Dr. Kwai. Well, if you talk about history, back in 2000, the purpose was to build the largest park in Kowloon, and 2004 it became an agriculture zone, and then we talked about the single tenders. It was a farce. The government said it could be completed with $21.9 billion. Now, we have put in another $6 billion and another $1.3 billion, and we are not even talking about the superstructure. And the basement would demand another $10 billion or more. So this is really ridiculous on the government's part. And they said this is history. They said we shouldn't talk about 2008. So if that's the case, you can say that what happens today on the 8th of December 2017 is part of history. And the deal is actually very attractive for developers, because we have to pay the high sums, $6 billion or another $10 billion or more for the basement, and also have the $190 million for the luxurious footbridge. And you are asking for funds at the FC time after time. And if you have surplus funds, they would be passed on to the WKCDA. It has become a backyard for retired civil servants. They can have something to do after they retire, which sounds a great idea. And some people are on millions of dollars every year. So Dr. Fernando Chung, Mr. Shukachun said, if the welfare payment is increased by $50, you should be thankful. And now we are talking about a total of $30 billion already. West Kowloon has become a paradise for rich mainland buyers, and there are a lot of luxury homes, and they can come to Hong Kong with the express rail link. Perhaps Hong Kong people would still pay for the food, but this is not the case for most people. I only have one request. Why aren't we asking the consortiums to be responsible? Since 2008, the government has been deceiving us. So shouldn't they apologize? Even Henry Tang is gone. So shouldn't the Hong Kong government apologize? Permanent Secretary, for the $3.18 billion, we have cultural facilities, including a theater. Why didn't you tell us in 2008 when you sought the funding? They weren't mentioned at the time. In 2008, there was no such design because there were no development plans, and the designs from Foster Partners weren't there yet. That's why we didn't plan for an integrated basement. And otherwise, the $2.16 billion would not be enough for all these facilities.
Please press the button again. Shukachun, 4 minutes. The descriptions by Dr. Kwok are very appropriate. Now, they get all the benefits. The government is so generous. It seems the government want them to get everything. Now, item 19 in the document. Now, the recurrent expenses, $21.6 million. Now, perhaps the Permanent Secretary can clarify. The recurrent expenses may be the street lighting, the maintenance, or the cleaning. Those may be simple. You even pay for that? The two sides of the road, are they owned by the WKCDA or by the government? The PS, Ms. Pan? The maintenance costs are only respect of the public roads and the electricity charges for them. Now, as for the WKCD facilities or the roads therein or the electricity charges are paid for by the WKCDA, because these roads can be used by everyone. As for the private roads within the WKCD, this is paid for by the WKCDA. Now, in such works, is it the normal approach when the public can drive through them, then the government will pay for them. But this is the back garden for the rich. So is it still the same approach? The government pays for the lighting and electricity charges. Now, this garden, 23 hectares of public space, is not a back garden. It's a public space that the public can enter and use 24 hours a day. So this road is a public road, so the future ownership and the maintenance and management and other costs will be borne by the government. But the car park and so on, these are West Kowloon Cultural District facilities, so they are responsible for the maintenance costs. Michael Tian, 4 minutes. Now, I was going to use this as a case study. If they conduct the tender exercise first, it will save 4 months, maybe not this time though. But at any rate, they don't have to come back for funding. Now, every time they come back for FC support, it takes a long time. Now, the PS said that originally they would have come for last year for funding. Then there might be a chance for getting the bid results. So in that case, you can conduct the tender exercise the year before last. Now, if you try to conduct the tendering before you come to FC, then you ensure that the funding is kept. You don't have to come back again. So people don't like to see budget overruns. We understand Mr. Tian's concern, but for Public Works, we make the preparation, we have the data ready, and we then try to get the work started as soon as possible. And if possible, we will try to do it simultaneously to save time. So it's suggested that we start the tendering earlier, but at least we must have the information on the scale of the project. So it's a limit to how early we can start the tendering exercise. Now, if we come back later to the FC for funding as a result, then there might be delays. So if circumstances permit, we try to do it simultaneously. But if you do it simultaneously, there's this advantage, is that there's uncertainty. After you approve, you get the funding approved, you come back again, and you then have to wait. So how many budget overruns have been there in the past? Now, which is the better approach? You don't get immediate approval when you come to FC, and when the bids are approved, the validity is for 1 year, right? Now, for public works tendering, the validity period is relatively short in the past. Now, because we adopt the simultaneous tendering, the time lasts longer, takes longer, so sometimes the bidder takes into account this this uncertainty when they draw up their budget. Now, when the when the tendering results are available, then of course we have a better grasp of the price. Now, I don't have the numbers right now. To my recollection, now in most cases, the public works do achieve quite a firm grasp of the amount, but there have been cases of overrun though, and we understand members' concern. Dr. Kwokaki, 3 minutes. Not here. Chen Chi-chun. Now on the tendering, now last week on the marine communication system, now they say that the tendering document will only be available in early 2018. So there's no regular practice by the government. Now, the largest reduction is in respect of 3B, the protection works for the AET. It should be 208 million, and then there's an over 50% reduction. Actually, Ms. Pang gave an explanation earlier. Perhaps please try to give a simple explanation again. As I said earlier, the bid price reflected the fact that the bidder, when he submitted the bid, he considered his manpower and his past experience and his capabilities, and also the prices in the market, and he might have some machinery already available. Chairman, this is in general, but in less than 6 months, there was a drop of 25.87%. So this suggests that you overestimated in the past, or is it a drastic change in the market? Please offer a simple explanation again. We consider the tendering document as a whole. We adjusted 12.6%, as I said earlier. Now the contractor looks at the contract to see how much he gets. Now on his strategy, they don't just look at a single project. Now, I'm saying you can ask them, why is it such a big difference on this one project? Yip Kin Yun. Now there is going to be the construction of the integrated basement, which is to be quite costly, and we know that the WKCD has a number of cultural and artistic elements. So for schools, this is quite an important area. Students can go and visit and perform and even be employed there in the future. Now, within the WKCD, there are all sorts of exhibition and performance venues, and I like to understand now for university students or secondary students right now, now they have a chance to perform or to visit exhibitions. Now, even they might have a chance to be employed there. How much help would they be able to get?
柏志高先生。
Can Mr. Pescott take this question, please?
Actually, we're putting a huge amount of effort into the educational programs, both on-site and outreach. Just to give you a few examples, we have the M+ rover. We've converted a 20-foot container into a roving classroom that we take out to the schools. And our intention is this year and last year we've reached every school in Hong Kong, one way or another, plus outreach to community groups. We do a series of programs within our site. For example, we have a great exhibition on at the moment about ink art, and we're taking school groups through that exhibition on a daily basis. As far as students are concerned, we already have internship programs, and I think we have a total of 90 internship places, some of whom over the last 2 or 3 years have actually joined us as permanent employees. And as we open more venues, obviously the performing arts venues, the museums, the number of opportunities for students to get engaged in our programs are almost unlimited, quite frankly. On top of that, we're looking at how we can develop within the district educational facilities so that students can actually be taught in the district in future, running performing arts programs, but also vocational programs. I'm thinking particularly about lighting technicians, sound technicians, theatre and stage technicians. So there'll be opportunities for people at all stages of education, from very simple jobs right through to the most experienced jobs, for example, as curators in the museums. Beyond that, we're also trying to educate future audiences, and we can't forget that the most important impact of this project is on the future of the audiences. Now, those are young people that we're aiming for. So we're running what we call a series of 101 programs. They're free programs. They're intended to introduce different aspects of theatre, dance, music, drama, and of course Chinese opera. All of these programs have been going on now for 2 or 3 years, and most of them are free at the moment. A particular program I want to mention is the third year now of running our summer program run by M+, where we take 100 young students. We take them away for 3 nights, 4 days, to work with artists, producers, curators, and to give them an experience of working with these creative people. And again, we're looking to the future. We're looking to these people perhaps becoming interested in working in the creative industries and in the arts sector.
Have you in contact with any, for example, vocational education authorities, so that you can have more collaboration with these agencies?
Indeed, I'm glad you raised that. We're working with the APA, we're working with VTC, we're working with Hong Kong U, in fact, we've got a program coming up introducing IM-Pay with Hong Kong U later this month. We were also working with the overseas institutions, and I have a number of programs that are being run in Hong Kong by overseas institutions working with us because, of course, for example, curatorial training, training of conservation, that's a very specialist area which isn't very strong in Hong Kong.
Thank you.
OK， 嗱，我想同大家講講咧，嗱，我哋原本喺10月15號
We would have had a meeting, an FC meeting on the 15th of December, but on the decision of the LegCo president, this might be the final meeting this year. The next meeting will be the 5th of January earliest, and we've been discussing this for more than 7 hours, which is adequate for me. So I hope we can discuss the next 2 items, and including a new AO post to lead a new market division of the AVHC, and the next would be 2017 to 18 judicial service pay adjustment of 2.95%, which has been much anticipated. Members who wish to speak, please press the button. If not, I would not allow members to ask further questions. What is the point of order? Please switch on the microphone for Dr. K. Kwok. Chairman, they did not answer a lot of questions we asked. Some members are in the second round, including myself. And at the PWSC, I did not ask so many questions. I left the questions to the Finance Committee. I don't think you need to do what you did. If you feel time is not enough, you can convene extra meetings. But now you suddenly drew the line, and one of our members are attending a wedding party, and many of them are still there. I don't think it's appropriate for you to be making such moves. And your time is up. I've drawn the line already. Mr. Leung Yiu Chung, 4 minutes. Chairman, please come back to the topic. I think you can rearrange the items on the agenda. In history, the chairman has never rearranged the agenda. I will not do it. Of course, it's good to see the costs going down, but confidence is one issue. As Mr. Ray Chan said. So the overall reduction is, or saving is 12.6%. Barring exceptional circumstances, you won't come back for more funds. You would not come here for more funds arbitrarily. So I have a few concerns. First of all, the staff of outsourced workers, can they really catch up? In terms of the materials, is there quality assurance? And this is one of our biggest concerns. Would the materials be up to standard? You said there will be enhanced quality assurance, supervision, etc. They would sound great, but for past projects, there were often problems. So this has led to a confidence issue. And the expenses are rather high. I asked whether there would be a system of guarantees and so on. Will the government do more to monitor this project to ensure that the project would be complete and up to standard despite the lowered costs? Perhaps I would try to address this question before I invite Mr. Pesca to speak. This is not the first project of WKCD. Starting from 2014, the WKCD has had a series of projects, and there have not been wage defaults. And this shows that they have a sound system in place to manage their contractors and subcontractors. As for the detailed arrangements, I would invite Mr. Pesca to explain how you manage those contracts.
This issue of quality is important to us because we have good designers, we have good architects, we want to maintain the standards. So we have a system of checks and balances. We actually employ third-party advisors to check both on the quality of the workmanship and the quality of the materials. So in line with government's own policy on this, we now employ a third-party system to check the quality of the materials being used, so that, for example, the quality of the concrete, the quality of the metals, etc. That has been in place now for a number of months, and we believe it's actually ensuring the quality of the product at the end of the day.
不過主席，即係講呢啲咧，其實即係大家聽慣，一般嚟講都係一定會係盡量去測檢嘅。
They say they will do their best to check everything, but how do you enhance confidence and monitoring? So please do pay heed to that. Dr. Fernando Chung, on procedure. Now, I was outside. Now I will give you 1 more minute. Dr. Fernando Chung. I query the financial arrangement. Now questions are about the integrated basement, 3A, 3B, and then there is 2A, 2B, 2C. Those would run into tens of billions of dollars. Now there's a new financial arrangement, the rights for property development, including hotels, offices, residential developments, they have all been allocated to WKCDA. That means they will cooperate with real estate developers and other operators, and they will make quite a lot of money. So why isn't the financial responsibility being placed on WKCDA when you give them so much and you still want the public to shoulder the burden of the infrastructure? Now, have you estimated regarding the financial arrangement? Have you calculated that even when the superstructure development income all goes to them, it's not enough? Now, in 2013, we already said that government will bear the financial burden. Now, if the developers have to share with the PKCDA and they have to pay government and they have to bear the burden in respect of the basement, then there would be very little financial incentive, because after they build the basement, then they will build the cultural facilities as the superstructure. If you wait till there is sufficient cash flow to build the basement, that will only come many years later. Well, if you're talking about cash flow, we can borrow. The WKCDA can issue bonds. Why do we have to get money from the public? We can ask Mr. Prescott to speak on that. Now, if one is to issue bonds, there has to be collateral. You have the hardware, right? You're talking about the development rights for the entire Western Kowloon. Hotels, residential developments, offices, perhaps $100 billion worth of property. Now, if the developer doesn't have to share with WKCDA, then there might be some incentive. But they have to share with WKCDA to provide WKCDA with cash flow. So, Mr. Prescott, supplement, please.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the key here is that there is an opportunity for raising funds by way of a bond. However, it's a catch-22 situation. We need to have the certainty that we will be able to build those facilities. Without the basement, there is no certainty, because you can't build the facilities without the basement. So, in order to be able to service a bond, and clearly it doesn't come free, we have to pay for that. We have to take into account the servicing costs as well as the administration costs.
主席，一係請佢交翻啲有關財務嘅報告啦。
You can ask them to submit financial reports. They must have done some financial analysis. They can supplement later what financial analysis they have done to make them feel that this year, at the beginning of this year, the policy address mentions the new financial arrangement to make them feel that that wouldn't be enough to pay for the infrastructure. Claudia Mo, 3 minutes. Now, I thought Dr. Kwai would be first. He already spoke. He wouldn't be able to speak? You want to let Kwai speak first? Oh, okay, Dr. Kwok, 3 minutes. Chairman. Now, we all know that there's a lot that the government needs to clarify on WKCD. For the Hong Kong people, it's hard to forget. Initially, it's a park, then there is a single tendering. It becomes a cultural item. 2-point-something billion supposed to be enough, and then 2.19 not enough. And then 6 more billion, and then 2AB. So this is a bottomless pit. And we are worried about the enhanced financial arrangement. So this is an enhanced single bid for the consortium. Previously, it wasn't said how much they have to shoulder. And now, this super basement, super footbridge, super luxurious cultural district. Now, you must let the members have the ample opportunity to query, but we don't have that opportunity. The chairman, you drew the line. Now, many other members were at a banquet, but they are not, it's not really convenient for them to leave. Now, we don't want to be in the way, but if you draw the line and so on, and you just try to force your way. Now, we have to discuss fully. We know it will pass eventually, because in today's LegCo, the rules of procedure have been massaged to suit yourself. So we have become an ATM for the government. So time and again, you try to force your way through. It says bad precedents. So this is your approach. So I have to make use of Rule of Procedure 39 to move for a motion for adjournment. 3 minutes, Dr. Kwok. The Finance Committee has once again become a rubber stamp. This is unnecessary. If you have been fair and let members ask their questions, we don't have to use such ploys, but you have damaged the mutual trust. In previous FC meetings, there were non-controversial items that were passed, including the lifts in Kwai Chung passed just now, but the WKCD is a special item. Now, the government has deceived the public for 17 years. There was voting, approving the reclamation, It was supposed to be a park, then it became a cultural district, then a single bid becomes a luxury residential area. That's what it is now. And then with the express rail link, this is ideal place for the rich in the mainland, from the mainland. And the public should not have any false idea how they would benefit. Now, of course, there is a park, but very often you don't have access to the park. Now, most convenient is if you drive or you take the express rail. So this suits the rich people from Guangzhou. But for Hong Kong people, what we see is tens of billions of dollars being spent. And then you have the enhanced version of the singular bid. And I believe it would be $100 billion. The government should provide us with the figures. The service apartments, hotels, the restaurants, can you tell us about the prices so that we know how much the enhanced version has benefited the consortium? Because only the rich people can give support. So this is unfair, time and again. Money has been drained. Hong Kong people has been deceived from the outset. We thought that the sea was reclaimed for an extra park. Today, very different. I must tell the public, we must clarify. We have discussed this item, 5 hours and 22 minutes discussed in Public Works Subcommittee, 2 hours, over 2 hours already discussed in this meeting. Over 20 members have spoken. Why? Originally, we could have done it. Why are we in such a hurry? Because if we don't approve it, then earliest it would be January next year, and the works will be further affected. So I tell you, Dr. Kwai just said there were several members which had to attend an important banquet or party. Now, is the meeting more important than private banquets? Chen Chi-chun, please keep quiet. Please don't interrupt me. Please understand that this council is seriously affected by filibustering. Originally, I said to everyone, Chen Chi-chun, please don't be noisy. If you continue to behave in this way, I have to ask you to leave. Now, we see how he has behaved. You can all see what's happening. According to my estimate, right now, I firmly believe that Dr. Kwai doesn't represent us members. I don't think that members leave for the banquet, but Kwai seems to suggest that the banquet is more important. So I reprimand that. Now we have 5 members who are prepared to speak. I believe this meeting will be unable to conclude this item. The funding will not be achieved today. In order not to waste time, we will adjourn right now so that we don't have to waste the time of all those who have been waiting. I think we owe an apology to the Hong Kong public. Thank you.